Welcome to the Extinction Level Event Podcast. I am your host, The Barrelman. So this is episode 7, I think. Either way, I believe I'm going to put it basically to the front of the queue. So it's going to be a bit out of order just because of the, let's say, time-sensitive nature of the material, not as in, it's something that's going to happen in 5 days or anything like that, but just because a lot of stuff about this has come out recently, and so I think it makes more sense to just kind of put this out sooner as opposed to, the other one that's going to come out. Now just set that to later. So the numbers are going to be all effed up as far as this stuff coming out, but that's life, right? So we have a few topics to get to first before we cover our major topic for the day. The first thing I'm going to say is we just had a tornado right outside of Santa Cruz, California, in Scottstown, I think it's called, Scotts Valley, sorry. And I was watching the news, and they said this is something that they actually get like once every 100 years, or not once, sorry, 10 times in about the last 100 years, I think is what they said. So it's certainly not unique, but it doesn't happen very often. They didn't say when the last one was, so as far as we know, this is kind of right on schedule. They did say that San Francisco's never had a tornado warning before, but then again, how long have tornado warnings really been a thing, and the network being up and running and prepared to actually give a warning and that kind of thing. So is that really a huge sign of climate change? It could be not. It really depends on how you want to look at it, but it's something noteworthy because it's definitely different. It's definitely kind of out of the ordinary. The other thing is related to another type of apocalypse event, but it's kind of one of those not really likely to happen kind of things, but also tied to another one that's likely to happen, but maybe not. And that is, there's been a bunch of drones running all over the place, just making themselves a nuisance. I think it was the second day that I heard that a helicopter was trying to do an emergency landing, not because it was in trouble, but because people were in trouble, and it's, emergency services helicopter. And it was unable to do that rescue because there was a drone in the area. I don't know if they eventually got to or what. They didn't follow up with it, but that is definitely interference, and there are golden windows, that they call them, for people to live. So if they get help too late, then they die. So, yeah, some minor delay for some people. For somebody who's in a lot of trouble, and I don't, again, know the specifics of the situation, it could mean life or death those few minutes. In airport, I don't remember where the airport was. It might have been like New York or New Jersey, where they're having a large bit of this problem, and where it really kind of started, at least as far as the sightings go. But anyway, an airport had to shut down for a little bit because of the drones made the airspace unsafe. So we're definitely talking impact on people. And depending on the situation, those kinds of impacts can cost people their life. So that's definitely a public safety hazard, and we do not want that to happen. There's also been some arrests. There were 3 people who were flying, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 drones. I don't remember. I thought they said they had 1 drone up and 1 in the backpack. But the reporting was a little, a jumble, because they were really just trying to get the point of these guys were flying a drone and they got arrested for it. They were flying it near an airport. Now, the problem is that the drones that are being reported are not, they're not hobby drones, and they're not even professional level drones. So people are like, well, professionals, they have bigger, better. They do, but they have certain looks and characteristics because they're basically just flight suits for a camera. I mean, that's the purpose of a professional drone, is to have a really good camera on there because that's doing all the work they want done. The droning is fun and stuff, unless you're doing a sport drone for some sort of competition. The whole point is the camera. And so you don't end up with these big old hard framed, like aerial vehicles with a camera on it. For you don't have civilians that have armored. You don't have civilians that have armor-bodied drone casings in order to protect their cameras because it's usually out of the price range of most people and serves zero purpose other than getting in the way of the purpose of the actual drone. You're also usually not filming in infrared and ultraviolet and night vision and all these other things. You have the camera. It's probably, like the best thing you can get attached to this and fly it around. So the reports have been more military style, like intercontinental giant drones that could, circumnavigate the globe, possibly. Not all drones can do that, obviously. It depends on the fuel capacity and energy. There's a lot of things. Depends on, carrying capacity. The reason I'm bringing this up, and especially the arrest for the guys who just had just regular drones, is because my theory is really seated in everything that's attached to what's been happening. Let's add a little bit of context here to what I'm talking about. So right now, we have in the United States, we just had an election. Most of the people voted for Trump for economic reasons. They believed his rhetoric about it's all about energy. I just need to drill, baby, drill, and all your prices will come down. It's really that people are just not educated. You haven't been educated. At a certain point, there's a divide between those who are educated and those who aren't. And you either pine for the thing that you do not have, or you own the things that you have in spite of not having those other things. And so what happens is people who aren't rich and aren't educated start to hate those people and think, well, it doesn't matter that I'm not rich or have a good education because I'm better that way. Because it's really the only defense mechanism they have. And so what we're having is people who are willfully uneducated, not because they aren't smart people and capable of doing things that intelligent, educated people can do. They just choose not to because of an inferiority complex. The reason this is important is because now that everything is coming out, because now he's been elected, it's like, the vote's over. He doesn't need your vote anymore. Now things are actually starting to come out about what he's going to do, including these ridiculous tariffs that everybody's trying to talk him out of. They realize all the prices are going to go up. And Elon Musk even said something about, well, I guess you're going to have to endure some hardships, aren't you? I think he said something like, in order for it to be good or something on the other end or whatever. But still, everybody's getting out of it, regardless of why. You're telling us we need to go through hardships. The richest man on planet Earth is telling us we need to endure hardships. So the thing, so the reason that that's important is because they're talking about where money should go as far as the government. And obviously, Trump in the past has always inflated the military budget. And they want to cut the social safety nets like Medicare and Social Security and whatnot in order to pay for more military and to save money in the government, which will never happen, by the way. Even if they cut all those things, they'll just spend that money somewhere else. They will never stop spending money just because they cut those things. But that's the illusion that they're setting. We'll cut here and then we'll save money. So what people are starting to do is they're starting to smarten up. They're starting to educate themselves, and they realize we have a hugely bloated military budget. And the reason that this is relevant now, tying it back to what we were talking about, is there's a legislation on the books right now that's talking about beefing up our drone security. Specifically, there's legislation, it just happens to be up right now that they're trying to get passed. I mean, it's not just introduced today. They've introduced it for a while. I actually have a page on it. I have not read it, so let's see. The legislation would allow Homeland Security and the DOJ personnel who are tasked with the safety, security, and protection of people, facilities, or assets to detect, identify, monitor, track, mitigate a credible threat that an unmanned aerial system or unmanned aircraft possesses to the safety and security of a nation, I guess, or people or something. It cuts. A lot of the legislation that we pass now has been through the system and never got passed for one reason or another. So it could be that this is old legislation, they're just bringing it back. And what better way to pump up support for this legislation and to prompt people to say, yeah, give them the money, give that military the money so that we can pass this legislation and get this stuff going because all these drones are over here, than to have a quote-unquote drone crisis right now. All these military drones flying around that they're saying, hey, don't worry about it, it's cool, bro, knowing that nobody's going to feel cool, bro. I know it's, there's some flying over military sites and such, but most of that information is pretty out there. They're not getting into the facilities. They're not getting the secrets out of the facilities. Knowing where everybody is at all times is useful if you're planning something like an invasion and you need to know where all those forces are and where things are weak. I don't think Iran's about to come over here and invade us. So that just leaves the big superpowers. And if, like China, which, remember, we had like some Chinese weather balloon spy satellite things go over, and everybody freaked the hell out of like 2 or 3 balloons. I think one of them got shot down, and it was a big deal, these little Chinese balloons with some cameras on them, taking pictures just like Google Earth can, and, get all this stuff that most people can get a hold of anyways if they want to just type in the right web address. And we're not worried about these drones? Sounds to me like a show of force from the military, maybe juniors at the wheel, trying it out and learning how to fly, and that they're pushing this to try to also push their legislation and making sure that they can secure the funding in this really polarized climate where everybody's trying to, everybody's thinking we need to decrease military spending. So to me, that's what this seems like. This seems like a military ploy to try to get the American people to just write a blank check to the Pentagon, which we do anyways, but they're afraid people are starting to smarten up, I think. And so they're doing this stupid crap. So that's my take on it. So now we're going to get to our main topic. And our main topic is tsunamis in general. But I live here on the coast in the Pacific Northwest, in an area that is uniquely susceptible to tsunamis. Anybody who's seen the rest of my channel knows that I live in and around Crescent City, California. I have a tsunami video that's my most popular video by far on my channel. I know a lot of people aren't impressed with it. It is a tsunami. It's the same when they hit Japan and knocked out the Fukushima nuclear plant. It's just all the way on the other side of the ocean. It hits us. It's still an impressive tsunami if you're looking at it right. It's just not this huge tidal wave that covers everybody's houses and drowns your cats and stuff. It's just not what it is. And that's what everybody expects. They want the, I think it was Indonesia, wasn't it, where the giant wave just came in and wiped everybody out, or even the one in Japan. which this is that same tsunami, but like I said, on the other side of the ocean. They want to see, all these prefectures here just get wiped out like over there. I know we don't have prefectures, but you know what I'm saying about that. So, yeah, so that's up there. So we also had the 1964 tsunami that I believe was generated in Alaska. I think that was just a 7. But what made that one bad, if I remember, is there was a giant landslide. And landslides are responsible for 20% of the worst tsunamis, the most disastrous tsunamis, I believe, is the statistic that I saw somewhere. So my program for recording these things has a limit. My tablet and my uploading Dropbox is even more limited, which means I can really just do one show at a time. It only has enough room for me to record one show and then upload it and then delete everything, go into my recently deleted, make sure that's all cleared out, just to do another show right now. I can always upgrade this gear later. When I finally get my laptop that I want to get in the future, all that should be not a problem because I have a huge, like either one or I can't remember. I think it's a 1 terabyte drive external that'll hold anything and everything I want. It's going to make life so much easier when I get that. But right now I'm just doing it with my tablet. I enjoy my tablet. It does really well. It's just that the storage is garbage and moving things around is even worse, especially with this particular program. The reason I bring that up is that limits these podcasts to a certain length. So I might not be able to get to like everything I want to about tsunamis, but I'm going to get to what I can. The first thing I'm going to do is I got a call from some people about a half a week ago now, I guess it was. They asked me if I got the alert for the tsunami, and I said yes. They asked if I felt any shaking or anything like that, or what my experience was. And they asked if I knew about a website called ready.ca.gov, which if we have time, we will talk a little bit more about that. I'll save that near to the end. It's a good website. I just gave you the address. Go check it out. It's not actually unique to California. That's just like a portal site that's a direct link. So you log in to ready.ca.gov and it actually dumps you out to another site, which is not a California-specific one as far as I could tell, but it is a disaster preparedness site. It's always a good thing to look up. It's always a good thing to have plans. It's lists of tips and tricks that you might not necessarily think of ahead of time, but that you need to. One of the things it mentions is have a go bag. I haven't actually clicked through the website. I talked to this person, and the person seemed very happy that I seemed to have a lot of knowledge on the subject. I told her I had a podcast. This is kind of my thing. And that's why I know a lot about the tsunamis and how they're generated and what they do and what to expect and all that stuff. So, and she said she was going to pass my information, including my YouTube, up to her director. And maybe they can work with me on something in the future or talk to me or get me involved somehow or whatever. I haven't heard back from them. Like I said, it was about a half a week ago. Wheels of, government turn pretty damn slow sometimes. So who knows if they're going to or if it's just taking a while. If it does and they ask me to, I will do a whole podcast just on that website. As for now, I'm just going to give it the plug. We'll take a real quick look at it at the end if I have time. But for now, I want to relay to you the story of the tsunami that just happened like two weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, whatever it was. I don't remember the exact date. It's really not even that relevant at this point. Let me see. I have pages that I had up that I put up for that particular day. I'll see if they have a date on them. So I'm looking up, because this is where I looked before. It's tsunami.gov, is where I looked. What does this say? 5.2. Oh, that's pretty decent aftershock. What does this one say? Okay. So none of them were giving me the date right now that I had looked it up originally, because they're all updating, which is fine. I don't remember the exact date. You could look it up. But it was like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago, something like that. And there was a 6.6 and a 7.3, I believe, were the numbers. Just southwest, I believe, of Eureka, California. Go ahead and run over to your phone, grab the maps thing, and if you don't know where that is, type in Eureka, California, and look that up, because that'll tell you about where it is, depending on where you are. Eureka's probably going to be this tiny little thing on the map that doesn't mean much to you anyways. But it's just a little southwest. It's in the middle of the ocean. Well, not the middle of the ocean, but you know what I mean. It's off the coast. I think the exact measurements or numbers I saw were 45 miles off the coast, or no, 45 miles from Eureka. So southwest, 45 miles, and the earthquake was 5 miles deep, which I don't know a lot about depth and how it pertains to strength, but listening to some news just the other day, apparently the more shallow the better. So deepers are worse, apparently, for us. So this was shallow, and it was on a triple junction fault. This was, well, I'm getting ahead of myself now by giving you the information I certainly did not have at the time. So I'm going to take you back to that day. I can't remember what we were doing. It was in the morning, just a little bit before 11. I know, because 11 is the time we have lunch at this house. We don't really do breakfast here. Sometimes we do breakfast for lunch, but 11's when we eat our first meal. And it was a little bit before 11. And we got an alert that said, there's an earthquake in your area, or be prepared. Like earthquake warning is what it was. So it didn't say that it happened, it didn't say where. The only information it gave was earthquake warning, and a short little blurb about what we're supposed to do in that particular case. It would be nice if they actually, in addition to the alert on my phone, they actually sent a text so I could read you what the text actually said, but they didn't do that. It was just the alert. And I don't know if there's a way to get your alert history. If there was, I would grab that and read it to you. But so I got that. I walked, her. I didn't run, but I walked hurriedly into the other room. My mom's the only other person in the house. And I asked her if she got it. She was in the living room, and she got it, and we looked at it. And at the time it said it was a 6.6, I think, or 6.3, whatever it said at that particular moment. Well, first, what we did when we got this, we said, okay, she ran someplace, I can't remember, to a door frame or something like that. And I thought, we're really, really not good at predicting earthquakes yet. So if they're giving us this, it's either ring, ring, alert, 2 seconds, earthquake, or it's an earthquake in the vicinity somewhere, and this wasn't even our county. It was one county down. It's still fairly close geologically, but, it wasn't even in our county. And I said, so most likely this earthquake's already happened. So I'm going to go outside, because one thing I do in the morning is I feed the birds and give the squirrels and the cellar jays their peanuts. Anybody who watches my YouTube channel will know I have those videos up from when I do that, so that's when I do that. And I thought, I usually do that right after lunch. I'm already getting up, I'm going outside, I'm just going to feed the birds, because I really don't expect an earthquake to happen, because we really wouldn't get alerted ahead of time. You know what I mean? Which makes alerts kind of pointless, to be honest. If it was an alert that said, Hey, it's going to happen in like 3 seconds. It's coming from blah, 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 or whatever. That might be somewhat useful. Or an earthquake of blah, blah magnitude happened at this city. If you're in the city, please call these particular people, not just call emergency services generic, but like call this person or this person in this area. Like if it gave more information like that, I could totally see that. I'm glad we have emergency alerts, for something like, say, a tornado warning or a hurricane warning, like stuff like that makes a lot of sense. You have time to do something about it. And I get that the whole earthquake thing, we're trying as well as we can to get a sort of ahead of time alert thing going on, but it's not there yet. So I just went outside, fed the birds and all that. And then I looked it up on my phone. I saw that it was like a 6.6 and it was down in Eureka. We had something like that, I think it was, I want to say like 10 years ago. I don't know if it was quite that long ago. But there was another one that did a decent amount of shaking and rumbling down there. Caused some major structural damage to the mall that's down there. So it's not like, oh my gosh, earthquake there, that's unheard of. No, it's not unheard of. When I heard of it, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. I don't remember getting a tsunami from that particular earthquake either. I obviously forgot all the information about it. Otherwise, I'd have never worried about this one, because it turns out there's a triple junction fault there between, I believe it's the North American plate, the Pacific plate, and the Juan de Fuca plate, which is kind of this small little troublesome plate stuck in between those two, which creates the Cascadia subduction zone and makes it essentially a megathrust, fault line there for, quote unquote, the big one, which arguably would be worse than the San Andreas fault. The San Andreas fault is a pretty nasty thing, and the worst part about that is because it's basically right under a bunch of city centers. So you're directly getting hit with a major earthquake with those. With a Cascadia, you still have a lot of city centers close enough to get severely damaged by a big earthquake, but then you have how should I say, a huge probability of a tsunami, right? And then a large probability, once a tsunami is generated, that it is going to be, what do they call it? Severe undulation detected or whatever. It's going to be probably a big tsunami, a decently sized tsunami. How big? They're estimating like 30 feet. But I think I saw an estimate that said like somewhere between 30 and 50. So they're estimating on the low side for whatever dumb reason. And why I say that is because all the tsunami evacuation zones are set to, you leave and it says leaving tsunami evacuation zone. Those are set at the 30-foot wave mark. So that's at the low end of what they're really expecting from a major tsunami, from the Cascadia fault. So everybody's really just set for a bad day if it's not. So after I find out about the earthquakes, I go, my mom finally comes out and she says, I don't know why the hell I was hiding in there. I'd rather be outside anyways during a tsunami, during an earthquake. And I thought, well, yeah. I mean, we have redwoods here. And aside from redwoods, we have some really tall conifers. We have pines and firs and all sorts of things that grow pretty damn tall. Talking, 100 feet tall, more than that probably even. And I'm not even talking about the redwoods, just the other trees. So there's lots of trees out here, some near our home but not in our yard, that if they were to fall, would definitely fall into our yard and probably kill just about everything in the block. So there's definitely big trees, so it's not like you're completely safe in the outside any more than you are on the inside, especially since if you're on the inside, especially if you're in like a bathtub like you're supposed to get into for some storms and emergencies, you might have the protection of some structural integrity if something tries to fall on you, right? It's a guarantee to save you, no, but it's better than nothing. And I figured outside is better because I could see what's coming that way. Can I necessarily do something about it? No, not necessarily, but it gives me a more comfortable feeling of I can do something as best as I can to try to survive if I can see it coming as opposed to if I can't. So I'm outside, we find out about this, and I think, oh, they're saying there's a tsunami warning now, that this earthquake may have generated a tsunami. And I'm thinking, if this earthquake, which is similar to one that had happened before, which didn't really do anything, generates an earthquake on, I think it was a 7.3 at this point, then it's mostly good. It's not very far out. So it's not like deep ocean coming in, huge amount of displacement, really racking things up. It's going to be traveling mostly along the coast. It's going to have a lot of energy stolen from it. I'm not expecting anything major. I'm thinking we might have a little bit of a show like we had in 2011. I'm going to sit on the bluff like I did before, and I'm just going to watch. It's not a big, and if it is a big deal, we'll see it coming because it's lots of open ocean out there. Trust me, if there's a giant wall of water, we're going to notice it, and we're going to notice it pretty, far out still. After all, we live on the coast. We're used to seeing the ocean, so we're used to seeing the height of the ocean. If there was a tall wave, we'd know, hey, that does not look right. So we're out there, we're looking. It's actually kind of high tide. People are starting to freak out. I learned later when I talked to the lady on the phone that somebody had called and said that she was in Crescent City where I am, and this was like not a mistake. She was definitely here. She was on the actual fault, and that she saw the tsunami. The waves kept coming in and going out and coming in and going up and getting higher and higher. And this is one of the things I had to explain that I guess made me sound smart. It was just me knowing a few things that somebody else didn't, and it's apparently like an old lady. She doesn't know any better. Anyways, I don't blame her or think somebody needs to like take a wrench to her or something like that. She needs to be educated. So, she was not on the fault because we know where it came from. It came from Eureka. It did not come from Crescent City. We know that I found out later, again, we're jumping ahead a bit, but that it was a strike-slip fault, which means it wasn't likely to produce a tsunami. Apparently, it produced a 3-inch tsunami, I think is what they said. 3-inch tsunami. It's not nothing. That much energy going through, even if the height is 3 inches, there's still a lot of energy in that system. It could still be dangerous, right? But we weren't in any danger up on a 30-foot bluff from it. And she said that the waves were going in. It was high tide. It was almost a +7 high tide, which isn't like, oh my God, the biggest high tide ever, but it's certainly a decently sized high tide. Like I said, a lot of people were nervous because of how high the waves were coming up, but that's because it was a +7, almost high tide. It was, I think, a 6.9 or something, or like a 6.94 or something. Anyways, it was a high tide. We've been having wind and rain and a lot of kind of stormy conditions, not, hurricane storm, but, your average rainstorm kind of storm. So the waves were a little rough. So this is what the lady was seeing. This is not tsunami. Tsunamis don't really work like regular waves. I did explain it to somebody when we were sitting on the bluffs. He's like, this is a tsunami, it's coming in and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you'll know a tsunami when it comes in. It's called displacement, and what happens is the water in the wave doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has to come from the actual ocean itself. So what happens is the ocean gets drawn out way farther than normal, depending on the size of the tsunami, obviously. It should go out more than you're expecting it to, though. It's not necessarily going to be like Hawaii is, able to be walked to now, but it's going to be, we have haystacks out here. There's lots of little haystacks. They're just giant pillars, not, exact pillars or columns, but, round bouldery kind of pillory things made of basalt. So they're really, strong, lots of silicates in there. They don't wear away very quickly, so they tend to stand out when other rock has been removed around them. And they're out there, and you can sometimes get to them, and a lot of times they're a little bit too far out, and even in low tide, you're not going to get to these haystacks. Well, when you start seeing some of the haystacks that you can't get to, now you can get to some of them. Obviously, not the way out, not, way past. I don't know. I don't want to try to put some numbers on it because, it really depends. But, when you start getting a little bit further than normal and you're like, well, that haystack really doesn't get uncovered in low tide, you're probably dealing with a tsunami. Then the wave's about to hit, which is the same thing that happened in 2011. It went out quite a bit. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, look at that. You could see stuff you could never seen before. It was definitely past the point of what was normal, though. But it was still very familiar. So it was easy to mistake that for just a really, really low tide. But it was a little bit further than even most normal really low tides, even the low ones. So once you have that, you're going to start to see the wave come in, and it won't be receding. It's just going to hit. And then the next wave will hit, and the next wave will hit. Sometimes you could see some of the oscillation where it will draw out and come back in. Really depends on the arrangement and strength of the waves themselves. But they won't happen like normal waves. And in fact, a tsunami isn't a wave at all. It is in fact a wall of water is what it is. It is not a wave like tides make. So you're more likely to see just a big wall of water, like somebody lifted a dam, up and let the water just rush out. It's just a big wall of water coming at you, depending on how high it is, obviously. It could be a small wall of water, but it's a lot of energy there. So this is what, you should expect if you're looking to see what the signs are of, is this a tsunami or is this just high tide? So I'm trying to explain this to this guy and alleviate his stress a little bit that this isn't a tsunami we're even looking at right now. And I did some quick calculations because the guy's like, dude, it's at this particular speed, which I have a page. We'll look at that in a minute. And it's supposed to go like, I think he said like 5 or 6, he said 600 miles an hour. And I thought, well, that thing's long past us then, because Eureka is 88 miles driving from where I'm at. 600 miles an hour, that thing was gone almost as soon as we got that alert. There is no tsunami here. Then I was actually reading up, and it said, oh, it can travel about 20 miles an hour close to the coast, which is where we are, and where the earthquake was generated was decently close to the coast. So calculating 20 miles per hour, which is obviously on the low end, but still, it was going to take about 4 hours to get to us. All information that was completely unavailable, by the way, at the time when I was looking. So having explained this, I said, the tsunami's either way past us or it's not going to hit for a while. So either way, just keep watching. This is not the tsunami right now. When I'm sitting there with my phone, that I'm going to record my next tsunami video that everybody's going to think is, underwhelming, because it will be. On the same bluff, similar nice sunny conditions, so it's going to be, nice and visible. On a better phone, which for some reason ironically takes worse photos when I upload them to YouTube than my other phone, I think, oh great, this is another, several 100,000 viewed video of a tsunami that everybody's just going to complain about. But okay, sure, I'll take it. This bluff is, like a part 2 of my tsunami video. That'll be great. So we live 20 minutes from the Oregon border, and about 5 minutes on the other side of that border in Oregon on the coast is a town called Brookings, Oregon. So I was a little confused why they would have information about what's going to happen before we did. It's a little confusing, but I can't argue maybe they have like an oceanographer there or something with data that we don't have access to. But a gentleman came up and said, we just got word from Brookings, Oregon. It's going to be here in 5 minutes, and it's a 30-foot wave. So if I backtrack just about 10 minutes, The police had gone through with a loudspeaker saying, everybody back off from the coast right now. Everybody back off from the coast right now. Just everybody back off. There's a tsunami coming, everybody back. It wasn't like, hey, for your own protection, probably want to stand away for everybody back off. Everybody back off. There's dangerous waves coming. Which, you want to get the message out. So I don't blame them for that, but when you're just being a total dick and like authoritarian about it, nobody wants to listen to you, and they certainly don't want to do anything about it. So nobody was moving an inch, right? Not to mention, I'm up there really confident because of all the data that I have in front of me, I'm not worried about a 30-foot wave. But when this guy comes up and says, still, we have no information whatsoever, and I'm starting to freak out because I'm looking at these buoys that are out there that have information. And I have the information on my phone. I can look. But the buoys give the information. What I'm thinking is happening is that it's measuring itself from the bottom of the ocean where it's sitting. Because the measurements were in the 1,000 meters, right? So it was, 1,000 meters, 4,000 meters, and I'm thinking, what in the hell is it talking about? There's like a 2,000 meter differential here. What is going on with these? Why is this 4,000 meters? That's a huge. How did something like that generate a 4,000 meter tsunami? And I'm starting to freak out about this because these are buoys supposedly all measuring the depth of the water, and I'm thinking the wave differential, and not this is the depth of the ocean here, right? And so when the guy came up and said it's a 30-foot wave, it's going to hit in 5 minutes, I had a total panic attack. So I'm like, oh my God, dude, we got to get the hell out of here right now. My mom, meanwhile, is talking to her brother on the phone, who's also in town with us, saying, hey, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. And I'm dragging her ass out. I'm grabbing our dog, and I'm throwing him in a dog carrier that's been outside unattended to for years because we've never really had to do that. And he has a harness, right? I'd just as soon put him in the harness, put him in the car, and go. But I'm freaking out because the only place we have to go is my mom's brother's house, who's there. He's not even at home. I didn't know that at the time, but he's not even at home. We're going to go there because it's further away from the coast. It's not really even up higher. It's just further away. So hopefully the dissipation of the wave is that by the time he gets there, it's either going to be nothing or mostly nothing. You can't get out of town because the roads are 100% completely congested. You cannot get the heck out of this town. So we get stuck in a bit of a traffic jam with somebody directing traffic, even though there's a light there. And we end up getting on the road to get out of town. Only I'm not getting out of town. I'm just going over to his house because I'm like, we're not getting out of this town, especially not in the next 5 minutes, right? I'm thinking it probably took us 5 minutes just to do what we're going to do, but who knows if 5 minutes is accurate or if it's 10 minutes. So we end up, getting to his house, sitting there. They've got no freaking internet whatsoever. So I'm freaking out trying to update this information, trying to get updated stuff. Nobody's giving us anything. Somebody finally, after about 30 minutes, I'm saying, so obviously it felt like 2 or 3 hours. And just for a little background, our dog does not like people. He barely likes us, to be honest. Cute little fuzzy bear. If you've seen him on the videos, he's like just the cutest thing. And he hardly ever bites us anymore. I don't know if that tells you anything. You get him in the right mood, though, he'll bite you. Usually it's over food. But the fact is, he will bite anybody else in a heartbeat. Just anybody else. And he will bark, and I think he's just a totally freaked out little wiener dog, is what he is. And so we're going over to this other person's house, and I've got to keep him either in my arms or we don't have a collar or anything. And these people don't have anything to give us. So I take him in their backyard and let him go, but they don't have a fenced-in area. So he gets to go for about 2.5 minutes. I got to pick him back up and hold him. And it's this whole ordeal. And finally we get word from somebody that the local school said, the warning's off, don't worry about it, go home. And I'm thinking, okay, but this is Crescent City. we don't always have the best information, and we certainly don't usually have the smartest people in the positions that they should be in to disseminate this kind of thing. So I'm not just going to take their word right now. But then we got information my mom found on a site that said they officially took the warning down. Like they canceled the warning. No more tsunami warning. So I'm like, okay, that's enough. We're taking the dog. We're going back. So it was this whole kind of messed up thing. And my thinking is now, looking back, that guy was there because his job was to get everybody scared to get away from the coast. It didn't work. It worked for me and a few other people, but most of the people were still there. And in fact, when we drove back after the warning was canceled, there were people walking back definitely looking disappointed from the bluff, from overlooking the ocean. Nobody saw anything that they thought was worth taking any photos or video that I know of over there. So I haven't seen any videos of it online. I'm sure there's videos somewhere. Somebody took something, right? Whether they shared it with anybody or else, I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing where they expected a tsunami, saw nothing, and just went home and said, whatever, I guess. We either have a tsunami on video and we're going to say we do, even if what they showed wasn't it, or they knew, or whatever happened. It was unimpressive. Everybody left disappointed. So that was kind of, and of course now I'm, having PTSD of this stupid thing, of the whole non-information, right? Because an earthquake in one spot can trigger earthquakes in other spots. And again, I don't know where this earthquake is. As far as I know, it's the southern end of the Cascadia that we're about to get, quote unquote, the big one. And then there will be a real big tsunami and we're all going to die. Ready.ca.gov, when they called me, said you should tell people what your escape plans are in case those are the best escape plans for people. Because I've thought about this. And the trick is you want to get as high as you can, as quick as you can, because you won't always have a lot of time when you find out about this. With Japan, we had like 8 hours or something like that. With Washington, we're going to have minutes. How many minutes? I don't know. It really depends on how far out, how deep, how much of an alert we get. If we could get around 20, 25, 30 minutes, I have a plan, especially once I get working again. I'm going to put my go bag together because I don't have a functioning go bag right now, and that's because I can't afford to put one together. I have a couple of travel go kits for traveling, but those aren't the same thing. I need to get a go bag together, and we'll be out of the house in like a minute and a half, and so the congested roadways won't be as much of a problem because we'll be out the door before that's a problem. And I have 2 plans. One of them's the A plan, and again, this is depending on how much time, and one is the B plan. The B plan is worse, like significantly worse. And there's the C plan, which is just basically a failure almost immediately, but it's what it is. So let's start with the C plan. The C plan is go south on 101. You're driving with lights and everything, because I'll have to assume you're going to hit the lights at the very beginning anyways. Unless it's so bad that it knocks out the lights, in which case we're all screwed, because nobody's going to, there's just going to be giant accidents when everybody's trying to get out, and there's no actual lights, and they're like, I need to go because I'm more important than you, and it'll just be big accidents, and nobody will get out. But even providing that isn't the case, and we can just zoom right out of here, like 10, 15 minutes. It's going to take to get to the car, get the heck out of here, go down the road, which is right next to the coast, the whole way, practically sea level, till you actually get to a mountain, foothill, but still it's high enough. It's hundreds of feet high. And get almost straight up on this thing. You just start climbing this thing. You climb up high enough that you get a nice vista point for the city, like about halfway up, maybe even only a third of the way up. So you can get pretty high on this thing pretty dang quick. And there's a campground up there called Mill Creek campground. And if you can get way up there and you just get to that campground, even though it's probably closed and you can't get in it, just park right there on the road and wait, man. You're going to be perfectly safe from anything other than the next Chicxulub, that comes and wipes everybody else, or the Lithua or something. Anyways, it's this huge tidal wave, like the biggest recorded tidal wave in history, not prehistory. That was just a little bit taller than the Empire State Building. You might be screwed then. You might still be safe against that one. You're actually pretty high up at that point. I'm looking at the time, and it looks like I'm not going to have time to really even go over the tsunamis like I wanted. So we're going to save that for another one. But I'm going to finish talking about this one for this podcast, and then the next podcast will just be a tsunami podcast for the most part. So why is that, C? Well, because again, you're on that major artery that everybody's going to be taking. You're on it the whole way, even though once you get to the top of the mountain, you can kind of stop and pull over into that campground. And especially if it's closed, there's a gate, like one of those really big metal gates, not like a little chain you could just drive through. Got a big-ass metal gate, you would wreck your vehicle trying to get through it. So there's only going to be so much room. You need to get up there right away, and you need to park down there, and you're going to have to wait. And you're going to be hopefully the first one there, but you're going to be the last one leaving. So you're going to be stuck there for a while. You're also on a major artery where everybody's trying to either go north or south. So you're going to be in the line where everybody's going to try to get to. It takes you, like I said, about 15 minutes where you're in danger. Like you go from 30 feet up all the way down to sea level and travel that whole length almost until you get to the mountain at sea level. So you're in danger like that whole time. So definitely really bad if that's the plan you have to go with. But you do what you can. So what's the B plan then? Okay. So here's the thing. There really isn't a plan without getting on the main artery, which is Highway 101 up here on the coast. There is no plan without that because we've just locked ourselves in as a town with that road. There is no in and out of this town without that road. That's just the way that it works. But minimizing the amount of time you spend on there is key. B does this. And it's like, well, then why isn't it A? Well, we'll get to that in a second. But B, you're on the main artery the least amount that you have to. So I told you about going over to my mom's brother's house, my uncle's house, and that was taking the shortest amount on 101 that you can. That would also lead you to the same place that you would be in to do the B exit. And the B exit is you take 101 up till you can pull off on a road called Parkway. As far as I know, you cannot get to Parkway any other way coming from the south. So Crescent City is south of Parkway Drive. It's in Crescent City, but if you're going there, you're going to come from the south, or you're already there. So if you're coming from the city proper, you're going to go north, and you're going to get to Parkway. You take Parkway off immediately. You do not wait. You don't keep going on 101 because 101, again, is going to be congested. Who knows what's going to be happening on there? Traffic, people panicking. Get off the main roads as quickly as you can. That's always the best option, especially in a disaster. If you have a side road to take that doesn't put you in more danger to take that, as far as road conditions and everything, it's always better to do that than to stay on the main road. Like I said, unless for environmental reasons or the disaster itself makes it so that those roads are worse. You need to, take a side road. Don't take the main road. So you get on Parkway because it's not the main road. It is still a major road, but it isn't the big highway. You then take that to 199, which again is going to be a major highway, but you've gone off of this road and you've now gone on a side road to take it there, which means you're more likely to get to 199 and be able to get on it sooner than you would if you just went up 101 north. You're then going to just take 199 as far as you can. Now, 199 drives along the Smith River, and this is where the catch comes in. you usually are pretty high up from the river. Not always. You're never at river level, really. But sometimes you only got about a 10, 15-foot cleft between you and the river, which is not great. Tsunamis travel up rivers, which means if it's a big enough, powerful enough tsunami, it's got enough energy, it's going to drive right up the river. And who knows how high it's going to get on those rivers when you're traveling on them. So when you're at the points on 199, when you're pretty high up, when you're like 100 feet or something up above the river, you're safe. Not to mention, you're headed towards some major towns in that direction. Up in Oregon, you got Grants Pass, you got Medford, and pretty much the rest of the country after that. But those are, an hour and a half to 2 hours away, which is not too bad in the middle of a disaster, right? That they have a nice big city to try to get to that's going to be mostly unscathed. And they are not on the Smith River. They're on the Rogue River. Rogue River is obviously a river. It could still have a tsunami run up it. But they're they're a couple hours inland, so they're not going to be in any kind of danger from that. So that's B. And again, B is not as good because of the river. And because, like I said, sometimes you're traveling within 15 feet of the banks of the river. And if that tsunami's traveling up there, that's going to be a lot of trouble. So the best shot, and again, you need the time to do this because it is going to take you about 20 minutes, probably 25 minutes to get there. A for me, and A is A because it is the most likely scenario in which you're going to survive just about anything that can be thrown at you tsunami-wise. If there's an earthquake, you could probably be in trouble on A as well if there's a bunch of big aftershocks. Now what A is you're going to drive north the same, but you're going to keep going. So you're stuck on 101 because you've got to cross a bridge that goes over, I can't remember the name of the river that it crosses. Well, actually, it is the Smith River. So you're kind of screwed on the Smith River on this one, too. But this is assuming you have enough time the tsunami isn't going to hit until you get up to where you're going. You got about 25 minutes to go. Because again, even though you're a little more inland on this road, most of the time, not significantly inland, but definitely not right on the coast, you got a good quarter of a mile, tenth of a mile sometimes between you and the coast, and sometimes some decent cliffs between you. Again, usually like the 30-foot cliffs. So that part's good. Assuming you're getting over the Smith River before the tsunami hits, so that's not going to be a problem. Where you get to is a little town called Smith River. And that's, obviously the Smith River is the name of the river there. But this town is also called Smith River. It is, claim to fame, is the world's largest exporter of Easter lilies. So you get to this town, and there's a road that goes east, and it's called Rowdy Creek. It goes east and west. It's not just comes off there, it goes both ways. But you're going to take the road east. It's called Rowdy Creek. It's going to take you up a little ways, but at a certain point, and the bad thing about this road, especially in a like just a little two-wheel four-banger like I got, is it's a dirt road, and it's not a gravel dirt road. So traction can be an issue. I've been on the road, and the road gets really steep, like not like doom buggies only kind of steep, but like I am uncomfortable. I feel like I'm practically staring down a cliff when I'm going down this road. And I lose traction a little bit, and we're all just dead going down this road. It makes me super nervous to drive on it, especially with the kind of vehicle that I have. No four-wheel drive, no big knobby tires, nothing. If you have that, you're good to go. But I'm not going to have that, but it doesn't matter because this, like I said, is pretty steep, which works in our favor in this particular case because we want to go up as high as we can, as quickly as we can when that wave is coming. And you go up to like a legitimate mountain on this one, not like huge, Everest-sized mountains or anything, but like a legitimately pretty tall mountain. you get up there, you can see the entire valley. You can see the ocean, but kind of barely. Like, you're far away. You were surviving just about anything. Probably not the Chicxulub one, but definitely the largest tsunami in our history that we've ever seen. You're surviving that on this for sure. So that's my plan A, to get out. And I think we're going to end this tale of my tsunami here. And like I said, we'll go over tsunamis in general next time. That will be our next topic. So I'm going to sign off, and I'll see y'all the next time. Because, obviously next week, but next week after that, whatever order you're listening to, right? Will we survive our own apocalypse? Only time will tell.